probability changes, so does the value of your bet. Even if you're an experienced bettor and you prefer American odds, you'll love seeing odds closer to minus 106 versus the normal minus 110 offered just about everywhere else, coupled with near instant in-play betting. No more spinny wheels. Download Sport Trade on your iPhone today to see the difference and beat the book. Use promo code 1580 to earn 10% cash back on every bet you place in your first week. Terms apply.
Sport Trade is regulated by the Arizona Department of Gaming. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP.
Everybody's got a podcast these days. Comedy, politics, true crime, you name it. But how many actually teach you anything useful? Harman Solar has an entertaining podcast that is vital if you've been thinking about looking into solar, but you don't know where to start. Ralph and Ben explore the intricacies of utilities, equipment, processes, and more. Their primary objective is to educate and empower you to make informed decisions on your solar journey. So increase your knowledge, not your bills. Go check it out right now. It's the Harman Solar Podcast at harmansolar.com.
Attention! If you owe money to the IRS, this is an urgent message. The IRS is cracking down by sending out heart-stopping letters, aggressively garnishing paychecks, seizing bank accounts, and putting liens on homes and businesses. They call it enforced compliance, and you better watch out because penalties and interest on unpaid taxes compound daily, making it seem impossible to ever get out of debt. Don't let the tax debt destroy your life. You need to call Optima Tax Relief, the #1 tax resolution firm. They're experts in the Fresh Start Initiative, one of the biggest breaks that the IRS has ever offered. If you qualify, you could save thousands. Optima's resolved over $1 billion of tax debt for their clients. A+ rated with the Better Business Bureau, they'll fight to get you the best deal possible. Call Optima now for a free consultation.
Call 800-709-7022. 800-709-7022. 800-709-7022.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
In most countries of the world, Forte means door. United Forte Custom Doors, located in the Scottsdale Airport Design District, is now open with over 40,000 European doors, all in stock, ready for delivery, and at wholesale prices. Designers, contractors, builders, and yes, you. Come see our showroom on Greenway Hayden Loop. That's United Forte, Porte. Stop by to see and feel the quality at United Forte Custom Doors. Find us at uporte.com. That's uporte.com.
Don't miss a minute of the action when Sun Devil football returns to Mountain America Stadium Saturday, October 5th, when they take on Big 12 rival Kansas.
Svoboda throws, intercepted by Fiaseu. Cyrus Fiaseu is going to take it all the way in for an Arizona State touchdown. A pick six for San Diego State transfer Cyrus Fiaseu.
Get your tickets today by calling 480-727-0000 or go online to sundeviltickets.com.
KQFN Tempe.
Also transmitting on K257CD Phoenix at 99.3 FM and K240 EU Mountain Hills at 95.9 FM.
Wherever you go, take us along. Listen to our live stream on our free Fanatic app. Download it today.
Hear that? That's the sound of week 5 revving up to go here on 1580 The Fanatic. We've got Thursday night football right after the blender, right after this show. What is this show? This is Beat the Book. I'm Keon Rose alongside our betting expert Dylan Cohen. We are broadcasting live from 1580 The Fanatic in the Harman Solar Studios in sunny uptown Scottsdale. Today on the show, a lot of good things happening, a lot of football things happening, but we're going to talk a little Major League Baseball to start the show. And then we're going to move on to the roundtable, like King Arthur's Knights, except we don't have a bunch of nights. We have a bunch of football games. We're going to talk about those. And then in the third segment, we're going to wrap up the show with the picks for the night and, of course, the Thursday night football breakdown. Stick around. You're not going to want to miss that. And, of course, on the text line is you, the fourth dimension out there. Text line 888-368-1580 is the Fanatic text line, which, by the way, if you want to let us know how you did yesterday betting, what were some of the bets that you made? Did you win? Did you lose? Did something happen that was, tragic and it just broke you? Did you get a big victory? We want to know. Also, how did your team do if they were playing baseball yesterday? We've got maybe a victory lap or two to take around here.
There's absolutely a victory lap to take
concerning the city of Baltimore. But we want to know what your team did and how you're feeling. Unless you're a Diamondbacks fan, we We know how you're feeling. But before we get to those things, Dylan, who powers the show?
We are powered by Sporttrade. And again, that is the newest app that is live here in Arizona to place your sports bets through. So do not miss out. A lot of great things about Sporttrade that really separate it from all of the different sports betting platforms out there. Start to think about your wagers in terms of percentage likelihoods instead of those traditional American odds that you quite frankly need to have a lot of experience wagering with to really, embrace and understand what the implications of, those odds and that pricing that you're typically seeing on all the other, betting platforms out there. I mean, it's just hard to understand what it means. I'd rather bet on, something that has a 55% chance of winning instead of a minus 120. I think most people would feel the same way. And we will have Sporttrade CEO Alex Kane back with us tomorrow. They do a cashback promotion when you sign up. I mean, every sports book out there, they're giving you something to, get your foot in the door. Sporttrade is no different. And this is something that we haven't talked about very much on this program yet. I'm going to save that space for Alex. He's got a lot to say about it. I actually just happened to receive my cashback today, and I'm not going to lie. Like I opened up my Sporttrade app, and I'm like that was not as much money as I thought was going to be in there. Let me go back and check my my settled bets. Was there something I put in that I forgot about? And then I kind of put two and two together. I'm like, oh, okay, that's where that $50 came from. That was the nice little promo there.
That's pretty nice. By the way, CK dropping in on the text line to say, good afternoon, fellas. DC's Instagram post on the Royals money line paid off, especially using Sporttrade. I was able to shop it around, and I got the Royals money line for plus 135 while everywhere else had it at plus 127 and plus 128. So
I made a complete mistake. I was supposed to bring that up yesterday, and appreciate you texting that in, CK. Hope you're doing well. Glad that you were able to ride that bet with me. And it's funny because I actually have a weekly meeting on Wednesdays with Alex Kane from Sporttrade, just touching base, figuring out what's new, figuring out what we're going to do on this show. And I actually brought it up to Alex. I was like, hey, I was interacting with someone on Instagram. He, let me know that he was able to successfully kind of negotiate with you guys, get a better deal on his bet. And Alex was like, oh yeah, that was CK. I mean, he didn't say CK, he said CK's name. But I mean, this is the scale of the sports book that you're working with here, to where the CEO, the founder, the creator, he's very well aware that you reached out to them and negotiated a price. So that was just really cool. It was really cool all around to be kind of in the middle of all that. So don't miss out on betting on Sporttrade. Again, you have the ability to negotiate better odds. If you don't like what you're seeing on there, shoot them a text. They end up sending you a text when you sign up. So you've got that line of communication open all the time. And don't miss out on Alex being here tomorrow. There is a chance to win a prize. We did mention this yesterday. Alex is going to go a little bit more in depth into it, but the prize is a $100 Amazon gift card, as well as an additional $50 going into your Sporttrade account, so you can fire away some more bets and try and turn that $50 into something bigger.
Yeah. So we'll get to that. By the way, McLovin, I see you on the text line. Says Patriots are still rebuilding. Be gentle this season. We are going to talk a little Patriots. They're in one of our matchups we're looking forward to this weekend. Maybe not for great reasons, but you know what? For you, since you're texting in, and I think you're a new texter. At least I haven't seen your name before. Yeah, we'll try and be a little nice. We'll be nicer to the Patriots than usual. They are rebuilding. But before we get there, Major League Baseball last night, we had some things go down. There's a certain city that's been in your crosshairs for a little bit, and you had a prediction about them a while ago that came true, like you're some kind of prophet.
It's just one of those things where every once in a while, it does pay off to listen to this show. You're going to hear something that, you wait a month and then it's going to come to fruition. And, perhaps there's a chance for you to be able to profit on, that wisdom. And what we're speaking about here, if you actually, happen to want to hear it for yourself, you can visit the Beat the Book website. You can search that in your browser, Beat the Book with Dylan Cohen. It should take you to the right place. Every time I've done that, it's pulling up now with like the search engine optimization, which is awesome. But if you happen to follow me on Instagram, the tag is at Beat the Book Fanatic, all spelled out. Just click the link in the bio. That'll take you right to the site where the picks and the past episodes are available. And then likewise, you can visit 1580thefanatic.com, scroll down, click on the Beat the Book with Dylan Cohen logo. That'll take you right to the same place where you can see all of the content that comes out from this show. But way back on September 4th, I'm going to just kind of very quickly summarize how this all came to be. September 4th, I put out my picks for the day. There's 10 picks. There's a long shot parlay. One of the big picks of the day was for the Orioles to defeat the White Sox. They were playing at home. I took them on the run line because for all 6 games they had played previously, the Orioles had won by 2 runs or more. Then in the long shot parlay within the same game, I had recommended taking the over at it was 9.5. So they needed 10 total runs scored in that game. And what happened? The Orioles laid a complete egg. They were at home playing the absolute worst road team in all of baseball, historically one of the worst road teams of all time in the sport. And they managed to lose at home 8-1. So not only did we lose the run line bet on them that day, but it also cost us the long shot parlay because the other 2 legs on that parlay hit. It was going to pay out like 22-1. So that was a really big, frustrating day. And I came in the very next day on September 5th. You can actually pull up this episode if you don't want to take my word for it. It's all living right there. And on September 5th, I was so frustrated by what I had seen by the Orioles the night before. I said, Keon, I want to make a bold prediction. I don't care who this Orioles team plays. You can pick a name out of a hat. They are not going anywhere in the playoffs. They will lose immediately. And yesterday, that's exactly what finally came to be. The Kansas City Royals got matched up with the Orioles. The Orioles were the higher seed in this matchup. They had the home field advantage, and we just watched them for 2 straight games. I thought it was going to be more about the pitching that was going to cost the Orioles. In the end, it ended up being just the inconsistent hitting. They've got Gunnar Henderson. They've got Adley Rutschman. They've got Anthony Santander.
They've got bats.
They've got bats. And these guys, for a good portion of the season, were towing their weight and doing their job. And then, on the biggest stage, when you need it the most, it just wasn't there.
The sprint that is the playoffs is different from the marathon of the regular season. And I feel like a broken record because I say it a lot, but it's true. And if you're relying on your bats in the regular season, there is no way to tell if that translates into the postseason. Sometimes it does. You go on a run. Good for you. Sometimes it doesn't. You're the Baltimore Orioles losing in the first round.
And you know what? Unfortunately, as Diamondbacks fans, we can kind of relate to this a little bit because the same thing to an extent happened with our team down the stretch. We just stopped getting these consistent, hitting, displays that we were getting for most of the second half of the season. And it cost us some crucial games down the stretch. And all we needed was one more win. And, we're not talking about this right now. We're talking about the Diamondbacks in the playoffs. Perhaps they're the ones going to Game 3 today against the Brewers. Instead, it's the Mets. So, that's just the way things go, is what it is. But was very happy to, see that prediction come full circle. Orioles get bounced. We'll see you guys.
I believe your exact words were, "It doesn't matter who they play, they're going down," and that's pretty impressive. I'm not going to lie to you.
And honestly, I picture them. What if they played the Tigers instead of the Royals? Like, I don't think the result would have been any different. The Tigers are red hot right now.
Yeah. And so like that's the other part of it too. It's like sometimes you just run into a team that just, for some reason, in the last couple of weeks of the season, has turned into a buzzsaw, and you can't beat them. Mentioned McLovin earlier. Jesse has a comment about some of the betting markets for the Falcons and the Buccaneers tonight. Bijan 100 plus rushing yards and receiving plus 105. Bijan 100 plus rushing yards and receiving is plus 105. Raiders are plus 120. Parlay for plus 373. Depends on how you feel about the Raiders. Jesse, we're going to get back to that text because we're talking NFL next segment. Bat Flipper says, baseball is the sport where the best team doesn't always win. And in the postseason, that's just very true. It doesn't matter what you did in the regular season to an extent, where like when you watch basketball, you feel like the best team usually wins those series because they're all 7-game series. So you're getting the most out of every team, or even a sport like football. if you're built around your defense, built around your running game, built around strong line play, offensive and defensive, even though it's a one-off, like a lot of times the teams we expect to be in the Super Bowl wind up in the Super Bowl, but baseball's just different that way.
Yeah, baseball just has that dynamic about, how have you been playing lately? And I think that that's relevant in other major sports as well. But as you were saying, with the NBA, with the NFL, it feels different. It feels like your whole resume of work, of everything that you have done so far, throughout the season, as long as there's no major personnel changes. If there's a significant injury, if there's a significant trade or an acquisition, that's different. And that's where some of these things get tossed out of the window. But as long as there's consistency, it does feel like you can really draw more on things that happened earlier in the season to, try and get a better idea of where things are going. Whereas in baseball, we've seen it time and time again, especially since this playoff format changed and has been expanded to where these underdogs that come in here, they're just a lot more empowered. I mean,
and the poor Brewers have been the sacrificial lamb of this format. For whatever reason, the Brewers are a good baseball team. They're consistent. They're in the postseason every year, and they're in the first round every year. And some team beats them and goes all the way to the World Series every year for like the last 4 years, 5 years. It's been an uncanny amount of games where if you beat the Brewers in the first round of the NL, you're going to the World Series. You may not win it, but you're absolutely going. This is true for the Diamondbacks last year, by the way. They started with the Brewers and found themselves in the World Series. You can go all the way back to 2019. The Nationals started with the Brewers and found themselves in the World Series. If you beat the Brewers, there's a good chance you're going to the World Series. And I'm really hoping the Brewers beat the Mets, not just because I hate the Mets, but because I just can't stand to see a fan base have their team be everybody's stepping stone to a World Series.
Well, and if you want to take that a step further, 2018, I mean, the Dodgers didn't win the World Series, but they made it there.
Yeah.
And they beat the Brewers along the way.
I believe they beat the Brewers in 2020 too, when they won.
They did. And I mean, look, there's more examples of this. 2011, St. Louis Cardinals won the World Series, beat the Brewers. 2008, Phillies won the World Series, beat the Brewers. I mean, it goes back into the 90s as well.
What did
80s.
That fan base do to deserve this from the universe? I have no idea how you wind up being that frequently, because it's not like the rosters have been the same. There's been turnovers. There have been different coaches, different managers over that time, different players. And for whatever reason, it's the Brewers in the first round losing as that first step to get to the World Series.
Well, and, if you're kind of connecting the dots here on what we're sort of alluding to, the Mets and the Brewers are playing Game 3 tonight. This will be a elimination game, and it's on the one hand an opportunity for the Brewers to, overcome some difficulties that they find in the earlier stages of the playoffs.
Some demons. That's what's happening there.
or is this the beginning of the New York Mets run to the World Series?
So the Brewers have to win now. For me personally to be a happy functioning person in society, I don't even want the Mets to get the chance. That's not okay with me.
New York Mets are currently priced at 30-1 to win the World Series. If you wanna try and jump on that wagon, right now.
Like that's the thing, is if you go ahead and jump on that, maybe even if you wait until they win the game, I don't know that that's going to move too much. You could make a move there because it just seems like that's the gate.
Or if you just want to go, hey, you know what? Maybe the Mets don't win the World Series, but I believe in this trend and they're going to make it there. You can take them to win the National League 14-1.
14-1.
Still pretty good returns.
It's still pretty good returns. And for whatever reason, it works. And the Mets, by the way, are playing the Phillies, whose number they absolutely have next. So that's just putting that out there.
Well, and there's a couple of picks I've put out for this game. I thought I had a decent handle on things yesterday. I did recommend on the air to take the Mets to win yesterday. They had the lead all the way up until the bottom of the 8th inning in that game. And then Jackson Chourio, who has just been unbelievable. I mean, doing his absolute best Corbin Carroll, type of impression, in terms of being a rookie, having such a huge impact in the postseason. The man hit 2 home runs yesterday to help secure the win for the Brewers. He literally was their offense. And what's kind of funny between these two teams, it's a little bit of a one-off, but the Mets played the Brewers, to end their regular season. Yes, then they had that doubleheader to figure out if they were going to get in or not. But the way that this basically reads on paper is the Mets are now going into their 6th game against the Brewers, like over the last week, basically. I think less period of time than that. So there's a lot of data. There's a pretty good sample size, a very recent play, and trying to leverage that to figure out what you should be betting on tonight. Jackson Chourio has got a hot bat right now. I would be looking very deeply into his batting props. He's got a pretty good track record against Jose Quintana, who is going to be starting tonight for the Mets. So definitely just wanted to put that out there. I know, people are scouring the sports books right now, trying to figure out what the parlay is going to look like. We've got baseball, we've got college football, we've got NFL. So finally, a lot of good stuff going on today. And there was a post today with picks. I did take yesterday off just because there wasn't a whole lot going on. So make sure you check those out. I've got explanations on, college football going on tonight. Have a little bit on there about the Thursday night football game, which we're going to get into later on in the show. So don't miss out on that stuff. And Keon, we've got an interesting week 5 in the NFL to get to here.
We do. Week 5 in the NFL. We're going to talk about that next coming up. And by the way, we're going to get to the Thursday night breakdown in segment number 3 of the show. But we've got the full slate of Sunday stuff that we're going to get to coming up next. And then after that, we've got the Daily Blender. And then after that, we've got the NFC South matchup with the Falcons and the Buccaneers right here on 1580 The Fanatic.
1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic.
Live and local.
After 3 years of legalized sports betting, something completely new is now live in Arizona. Dylan Cohen from Beat the Book here, and I'd like to introduce you to SportTrade. SportTrade is the first sports betting app that gives you the option to see the odds expressed as probabilities, and it's going to change in-game betting forever. If it's easier to understand 52% probability of winning versus minus 108 odds, SportTrade is your new home. With this percent odds feature, cashing out now makes much more sense. As the win probability changes, so does the value of your bet. Even if you're an experienced bettor and you prefer American odds, you'll love seeing odds closer to minus 106 versus the normal minus 110 offered just about everywhere else, coupled with near instant in-play betting. No more spinny wheels. Download SportTrade on your iPhone today to see the difference and beat the book. Use promo code 1580 to earn 10% cash back on every bet you place in your first week. Terms apply.
SportTrade is regulated by the Arizona Department of Gaming. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP.
4 years. That's how long it took Democrats to ruin our economy and plunge our southern border into anarchy. Who helped them hurt us? Ruben Gallego. Washington could have cut taxes for Arizona families, but Ruben blocked the bill. And his fellow Democrats gave a bigger break to the millionaire class in California and New York. They played favorites and cost us billions. And Ruben wasn't done yet. Democrats could have secured the border. Instead, they invited an invasion and used our tax dollars to pay for it. Ruben Gallego even backed the law to let them vote in our elections. Don't give Gallego and the Democrats another 4 years to hurt us. Give your support to a real Arizona leader, Kari Lake. Kari and the Republicans will secure the border, support our families, and never turn their backs on us. Kari Lake for Senate.
I'm Kari Lake, candidate for U.S. Senate, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Kari Lake for Senate and the NRSC.
Paid for by Christian Care Ministry.
You know, a lot of times you have to choose between something high quality or something that saves you money. But if you could get both, why not? Especially when it comes to healthcare, and that is MediShare. You get both. Many families save $500 a month with MediShare, and that's huge. But it's also true that people wind up way more satisfied, too. The member satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. That's because MediShare works. It has for more than 30 years. It's a community of Christians who have shared more than $5 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth. They love the huge PPO network. So, yeah, really, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price in 2 minutes. Here's the number. Just call 855-51-BIBLE. That's 855-51-BIBLE, 855-51-BIBLE.
1580 The Fanatic.
NFL Week 5 kicking off tonight. Buccaneers, Falcons. And we'll get to that here in just a little bit, but we're going to talk about some of the other NFL games on the slate coming up Sunday, because we're not going to have a whole lot of time to get to that tomorrow. So let's go ahead and do it today. And, we can start in any number of directions, Dylan, because, there are a bunch of great games. But let's start with Baltimore and Cincinnati.
Well, and before we get into the actual analysis here, there is this contest that's going on. This is separate from Sport Trade. This is something that is spearheaded by Jeffrey O'Brien on the Daily Blender. It is the Harmon Solar 1580 The Fanatic Pick'em contest. So if you are involved with this, you know what it is. Every single week you go online, you pick who you think is ultimately going to win each game. We're keeping a running total throughout the season. You can win individual weeks. You can win it all at the end of the season. And when this whole thing started, I had a decent start on it. My name on there is Beat the Book. Keon's on there as
just Keon
Rose. And I started off good, and then I very quickly tailed off as we've seen a record number of underdogs win, and I was not faring very well through all that. Now, Keon, on the other hand, didn't have the same great start that I did, but now he has fared very well through all of the upsets, all of the underdog winners that have happened. So as of right now, Keon is sitting in the top 50. The first placeholder right now is Fish Tank. So Fish Tank, if you happen to be listening right now, as we go through some of these picks, since you are the current leader in the pick'em, would love to have you text us. Let us know if you agree. Let us know if you disagree. I've been trying to see what your picks are on here, but I don't think it's going to actually show it until the games start. So, would love to have your feedback on this. But as Keon mentioned, we do have a pretty interesting game here with Baltimore and Cincinnati. And
before you do that, let me just get to a text that came in right before we went to break with Baker's Cocky Hens, who says, I'm on a huge cold streak since Sunday. I haven't hit 1 of 15. Thank me for the Mets loss. I had the money line parlayed with the Padres money line.
Well, I was on Mets money line too. So
you're not alone there.
We
Baker's
lost that
Cocky
one
Hens.
together.
Yeah,
I completely understand what you're going through right now.
As a community. All right, now that we've got that taken care of, let's get to Baltimore and Cincinnati, because this is a very big game. All divisional games tend to be. And with Baltimore, they righted the ship. They were 0-2. Refused to go down to the Dallas Cowboys and have to figure out their way back from 0-3, whereas the Bengals did have to figure out their way back from 0-3, but they've been on track since then as well. And they're both looking a little bit more like the teams that we genuinely expect. So what stands out to you in this game?
I mean, this is a shot for redemption, for Cincinnati. Naturally, I am carrying somewhat of a bias into this, with Baltimore being involved.
That's right. I forgot that it wasn't the Orioles that you had a problem with. It was the whole city of Baltimore.
Well,
just the entire city.
Yeah. And so with that being said, I guess I'm naturally kind of leaning one way, even though that feels a little counterintuitive just because of the kind of season the Bengals have had up until this point. But this is a matchup of divisional rivals that are very familiar with each other. There's definitely a good historical sample size of, what tends to happen in these games. And I'm just looking at Cincinnati and their upcoming schedule. They're sitting at 1-3. And after this game, they've got some easier road games after the fact, Giants and Browns. So if Cincinnati happens to win this game and then they can move on and beat the Giants and the Browns, they're going to be right back at 500.
And they'll have had the benefit of pulling the Ravens back down to 2-3, which in that division, the way that they beat each other up and the way things get very physical, and you're always in this weird three-way race between the Ravens and the Bengals and the Steelers every year, and sometimes the Browns too. You do end up having to find the importance of these games. You get 2 more games coming up that are very winnable, but if you can win this one, you also pull a division rival back down to earth a little bit.
Right. And actually I was wrong. They would then go to 4-3. So they would be above 500 at that point. Definitely back in the conversation of vying for the postseason. And, you look at some of these other losses that Cincinnati has had up until this point, and it's easy to kind of pile on and be really harsh when they're 0-3, and then they did manage to get that win at Carolina last week. But even in these losses, I mean, these are very small margins that they're losing by. Their largest loss was that game against the Patriots in week 1, where they lost by 6 points.
Yeah. And look, you still shouldn't lose to the Patriots. You don't really get a pass for that. But that is a legitimate defense that they're sporting in New England. That is real. It's hard to throw on. If you're looking for, an over the top big explosive play, you're probably not going to find it when you play New England. And when you account for the fact that T. Higgins wasn't available for that game, Jamar Chase was obviously holding out, so he wasn't 100%. That you can see how that kind of sets itself up for a bad start for a team. I don't necessarily read too much into it. I agree with you, by the way, because obviously you go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs, you lose that one by a point. And then the Commanders, I mean, in retrospect, that offense is really difficult to stop.
They're good.
That's it, at the time, it's like, wow, how could you lose to Washington? Now, okay, you know what? You lost to Washington, but I don't know very many people that are going to slow that offense down. And Cincinnati just got caught as the victim of an offense that's suddenly taking off.
Well, and now kind of the more that I'm looking at this, this kind of feels like a good spot to maybe look at some Derrick Henry props. Perhaps, rushing, receiving. I see him being a pretty big part of the game plan that's, going to ultimately overwhelm the Bengals, or at least try to. I mean, Keon, do you see this being kind of more defensive heavy? Is this going to be, similar to, like that week 1 Bengals game where there's 26 total points, or can we expect more of a shootout?
I think we can expect a little bit more of a shootout if the Ravens score first. Because what the Ravens want to do is, and it feels a little counterintuitive, but they want to make Lamar Jackson a complimentary piece. They don't want everything on his shoulders. They want everything else to function. And then when you need the kill shot, then you call in Lamar Jackson. Lamar being a guy that threw 18 passes last week because it was the Derrick Henry show, because they hung 271 rushing yards on the Buffalo Bills, which that's a really good defense. That's a good run defense in its own right. And they ran right through it like it wasn't there. If the Ravens score first, I think this does become a shootout because the Ravens do have those issues in the secondary. And then I do think that the Bengals offense has shown enough in the last couple of weeks, like, okay, they're starting to get going finally through the air. This could be a little bit of a back and forth. This doesn't feel very low scoring to me at all.
Well, King Henry last 2 weeks, 151 rushing yards, 199 rushing yards. And that's just in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I just pulled up right now. Actually, I'm looking at the rushing prop. So his line is sitting at 83.5. Over under there.
Oh, that's a tempting one right there.
There feels like a pretty good opportunity.
And the Bengals defense, the Bengals run defense in particular, is not good. That you can run in the middle of that team. It's been disappointing to watch them play defense in general. Their lone defensive standard player is Trey Hendrickson, who plays on the edge. He's an edge rusher. The middle of that defense can be run at, and I do think that the Ravens have very bad intentions with how they plan to run the football directly at the Cincinnati Bengals and force them to stop them.
And I was just trying to look up what Lamar Jackson's record is like overall against the Bengals, because he's definitely played against them.
A bunch of times. I don't know what the record is off the top of my head, but to me, I'm not even looking at that. The way these two teams are currently constructed, the Ravens are the best running team in football, and they are the best at stopping the run, a thing the Bengals also can't do. So I'm a little worried about the Bengals' prospects in winning this game just on that.
So to your point there, I just finally got this pulled up. So the Bengals are tied for the 6th worst rushing defense right now in the NFL. And then you've got the Baltimore Ravens like very wide and far ahead of everyone else for the top rushing defense in the NFL. Yeah. They are allowing 57.8 rushing yards per game. And the next closest team is at 75.
Yeah. And we can talk about the Bengals rushing offense too. With Zach Moss is not a world beater. He's been below average so far this season, to the point where I almost think they should get Chase Brown more touches than Zach Moss. Chase Brown is actually averaging more yards a carry and more yards after contact than Zach Moss is. I don't really like the Bengals in this spot at all. Even though they're a 3-point underdog, I think the Ravens could probably cover that pretty easily.
Well, and again,
AFC North is weird, but
how many times have we found ourselves in this exact kind of a conversation already this NFL season, where you're so inclined, all the signs are pointing, to one outcome, and then Sunday rolls around and that's just not what happens.
But it seems to be more what is happening as the weeks go on, and like you start to figure out, okay, that team's for real. This team's not for real. Their momentum from last year is dead. That's not carrying over. Like, you're gaining more information every week, and all I have is the information we've got. So I I'm not going to sit there and try to overthink it and go, well, but when the numbers pointed this way, it didn't work out. I'm just going to take the Ravens.
All right. So you and I are split on this one. I'm on Bengals. You're on Ravens. Let's look at Buffalo and Houston. That's a pretty intriguing matchup between two of the better offenses right now in the NFL, and just two of the more, well-rounded teams. Certainly two of the elite quarterbacks of, the league going head to head here. And just looking at the line right now, this is one of the closest games of the Week 5 slate, just going off the point spread right now. The Texans are the underdog in this on the spread. So the Bills are a minus 1.5 point favorite. But then you look at the money line, and it's interesting because it's just priced pretty much at like a pick 'em, like a 50-50. The Bills are minus 110 on FanDuel, and then you've got the Texans at minus 108. So, the way that translates implied probability wise, it's basically like 51%, 49%. This is an interesting opportunity for the Bills coming off a complete beatdown at the hands of the Ravens, looking to try and regain their form. And then you've got the Texans who, have had a pretty good season up until this point, but I guess to some extent, you almost kind of feel like it's a little underwhelming.
It's a little underwhelming because of how they've won games. They barely got away from the Bears, who are really bad. They got destroyed by the Vikings, the game that they did lose. They barely got away from the Colts with Anthony Richardson playing up and down football. He wasn't even great in that game that they played. And then they kind of escaped Jacksonville too. So you're looking at some of these underwhelming teams that they have beaten. It just hasn't looked great.
So, Buffalo currently sitting at the top of the AFC East with a 3-1 record. Then you've got Houston also 3-1 sitting atop the AFC South. And I just have to imagine that, the way that Buffalo struggled last week against, Derrick Henry and the run, and then the way that just opens things up for the passing game when the run is going so well. If Joe Mixon happens to play in this game, I believe he's questionable. I think that's going to have a huge impact on ultimately, which way I would lean at this point, assuming Joe Mixon plays. I'm picking the Houston Texans on this one. I just really like, and also we can't forget this is the Stephon Diggs revenge game, and now
the second one of the season,
right?
Which he did not win the first one. The Vikings got the better of him there, so we'll see how the Stephon Diggs revenge tour continues against Buffalo. One thing I think to note too about the Bills and the reason why they were so bad at stopping the run is that those linebackers are not playing well. And I think that just the way the Texans are, the way their offensive coordinator thinks, Bobby Slowick, he's very aggressive. He's going to attack those linebackers and try and put them in conflict, make them make decisions, and see if you can get them to make some wrong decisions and get some explosive plays out of it. I expect the Texans to make that happen. The only thing that really concerns me with the Texans outside of whether or not Joe Mixon is playing, and this can't possibly be something that they maintain, they are the most penalized team in football. They are the most penalized with false starts. They are the most penalized with holding. They are first in both of those categories. They are third in overall penalties. That's bad. There's no way they can maintain that and win football games. And a large part of the reason why it looks like they've struggled so much, even though they're 3-1, is the penalties, because the third downs get to be a whole lot longer for the Texans than they were a year ago when they were much more successful. They've got to, like, Laramie Tunsil's got to stop holding people. Like, dude, you've been in the NFL too long. You cannot continue to hold people that way. That's the only thing that really scares me from the Texans outside of Joe Mixon.
Well, and then you got to kind of take the strength of schedule for Houston into account too, because you look at the three teams that they did beat. They beat the Colts, the Bears, and the Jaguars. And in each of those games, they were very small margins of victory. We're talking like 6 points or less, where then you've got a Bills team that did also actually play this Jaguars team. And each of these teams both got to play the Jaguars at home. The Bills stomped them 47-10. It's not the most perfect science for trying to use that as a reference to get some inclination on what's going to happen. But
yeah, but also you got to look at, if you're going to do that, then like the Bills escape the Cardinals, which does not look great now. And then the Dolphins, you have the no Tua Dolphins.
No Tua for like a little less than
that's
half
true.
the game.
They were up big on that. But I just think the Dolphins have kind of taken a step back in general, even without the Tua injury. I don't know. I think that you can only take the tests that are in front of you. And I know that the Texans can play cleaner football than they have been playing. And my guess is that one of the reasons why those games have been so close is penalties. I mean, I think it's 326 yards worth of penalties they've lost.
It's a cool 3 football fields worth.
Yeah, like at some point they've got to clean that stuff up. I don't know if it happens this week, but I'm gonna have to bet on it because I do think they're the better football team, top to bottom.
That might be a game where I'm maybe looking to just play like the over under. I mean, right now it's sitting at 47.5, and these are both teams that are very capable of scoring and putting up some points. So I know the Stephon Diggs first revenge game didn't go so well, but I'd have to imagine this is the one that he probably wants a little bit more.
Just a little, but like to me, does Josh Allen get him the ball? Because sometimes when the Bills are in trouble, it turns into the Josh Allen show. Sorry, not Josh Allen.
CJ.
When CJ's doing his work and they get into trouble, all of a sudden CJ's like, I don't have a favorite target anymore. I'm spreading the wealth around. I'm finding everybody, and it turns into like CJ's now the director of this entire thing, and Stephon kind of face to the side, which is the thing that makes him mad. So I don't know if we're gonna get the big Stephon Diggs moment, maybe, but I do think that the Texans, if you just look at their roster, just top to bottom, and you look at the Bills roster, the Texans are the more complete football team here. And I do think the Bills are kind of coming back to earth just a little.
Well, and a win in this game in particular would go a really long way for just the narrative of the Texans and, their standing in the league and how, they're being looked at right now. And I think it would really kind of flip things from them, maybe not necessarily being among the sort of hunted teams. They're going to go from being hunters to being the hunted if they end up winning this one. I mean, at that point, you're in a direct conversation with, the Chiefs. I don't think the 49ers totally exist in this conversation anymore, but tons of potential for them to get back into it. I mean, when you're thinking about what teams are going to ultimately, win the Super Bowl.
I mean, I still think you got to keep the Niners in that conversation because they're still the best team in their division. And like, unless you think that they're being overtaken by the Seahawks, I still think so. Yeah. Mostly, because like what you mentioned with the strength of schedule, I don't know how good the Seahawks really are because they haven't played anybody really tough outside of the Lions, which they lost that one. So I just want to see a little bit more from Seattle before I say they've overtaken San Francisco as the best team in the NFC West.
So that'll be something to keep an eye on. We've got our Cardinals playing the 49ers this weekend as well. We talked a little bit about this game yesterday. Don't have a whole lot of time to get too deep into it now. But that is one where I'm just honestly blindly picking the Cardinals every week. I do think that there is potential for this to be a bit of an upset game just with how banged up the 49ers are right now. It's kind of a big unknown on when you're going to get McCaffrey back. Turns out he's got tendonitis in both of his Achilles tendons, which does not sound like a very good.
Essentially, if you try to run at all, one or both of them is going, and that's That's scary. You just rest is the only thing that can fix that. Go ahead and rest. Just take all the time that you need if you're Christian McCaffrey. I saw Brock Purdy playing insanely good football, even without Christian McCaffrey, even without having a Brandon Ayuk who's playing very well, even without Deebo Samuel. He's been playing really, really well the last couple of weeks. He had Deebo back last week, but he didn't have him the week before, and he was still playing incredibly well. And I just think if Purdy's going to be doing that, if Kittle's going to step up, if Mason's going to step up, and it looks like he has, I don't know if I trust the Cardinals to pull the upset here, because I haven't seen anything from the Cardinals that would suggest that they're going to pull the upset here outside of that big win against LA. The upset to me has to come from Kyler's playing really, really well and with a lot of confidence. And he didn't look like that last week against the secondary in Washington. You should light up. And if you can't light up Washington, why should I believe that you're going to light up San Francisco?
Kyler Murray is 2-4 in his career against the 49ers. So that doesn't instill a whole lot of confidence. But I would say he's starting to get into a place where his back is a bit against the wall in terms of job security.
Yeah, these are the people that believe in Kyler. When they run out of belief in Kyler's going to have to try to do the Geno Smith backup path back to relevance. Nobody wants that because there's no guarantee you pull off the Geno Smith, Sam Darnold career renaissance. So I think Kyler's got this and pretty much just this to try and continue to be a starter in the National Football League. His back is very much against the wall. I just don't know that makes that a difference here.
So one last thought on this. There is a really good track record right now, betting wise. This is a trend. You can look it up, but teams that are priced as a 7-point underdog or more, they have a pretty good record right now, straight up. I know going into last week, they were undefeated 4-0. And then I think they finally had one that lost. So it might be sitting at like 4-1 right now or 5-1. But as far as betting trends go, that is a thing that we've seen right now so far this season. When you're that big of an underdog, you end up coming out on top. And it just,
I guess, but like there's going to be a regression back to the mean on that. So like at some point you bet that, but you bet it at the point where you have to realize like, okay, this can't continue as a trend forever, because they are going to figure out the NFL and start pricing these things better. I'm not going to rely on that. I just can't. CK, by the way, says that you sound like Randy because you pick the Cardinals every week. Randy always picks the Cardinals.
I'm a homer.
All right. I mean, look, if you can admit it, the annoying homers are the ones that are homers, but then act like they're not. If you're a homer, just own it. Bat Flipper says Purdy is a beast. Didn't believe it until this year. Go Niners. And look, man, he is. There's no doubt. I doubted him that first year, but the second year, you saw a little bit of the training wheels come off. You saw some of the injuries that he had to overcome as a quarterback around him, all those injuries, and he overcame them and played really good football. And this year, the trend is continuing. So no, Brock Purdy is absolutely legit. We had a whole bunch of more games to get to. We ran out of time. So we're going to go ahead and get to Buccaneers and Falcons coming up next, right here on 1580 The Fanatic.
1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic.
Live and local.
Now open in Scottsdale. It's United Forte Custom Door Showroom with 40,000 Euro doors and hundreds of state-of-the-art designs and finishes on display, plus kitchen cabinets, bathroom vanities, and more, all at wholesale prices. Builders, contractors, designers, and yes, you. Come see our showroom on Greenway Hayden Loop. That's United Forte, P-O-R-T-E. Stop by to see and feel the quality. United Forte Custom Doors. Find us at uporte.com. That's uporte.com.
It's fall football season, and Kasai Japanese Steakhouse is doubling down. Now at 2 Valley locations. When it comes to Asian cuisine, no one does it better and more authentic than Kasai, where talented Teppan chefs create the food, the fire, and the fun of teppanyaki. Kasai Japanese Steakhouse isn't just dinner, it's dinnertainment. a memorable dining experience where a delicious 7-course meal is prepared right at your table with flair. It's a perfect choice for celebrations, date nights, or a night on the town. Choose from over 30 different items and combinations of teppanyaki, Asian fusion, and innovative sushi. Happy hour is always on fire and offered daily with specials on their Asian-inspired comfort food like Korean steak tacos, Mongolian barbecue ribs, and signature Wagyu beef sliders. Always a memorable dinner, or catch the game and a bite at the bar at Kasai. Now the 2 locations, Scottsdale Road in Thunderbird and in Peoria at the 101 in Northern. Go to KasaiTeppan.com. That's KASAI Teppan.com, or search Kasai on your mobile phone.
Lowe's knows it's easier to make the right calls when you have the right team. That's why our Lowe's Red Vest associates can help with game time decisions. Plus, use in-store mode on the Lowe's app to find what you need. Under pressure at home and want it soon? Order online by 2 p.m. to get it same day. Same day valid on eligible in-stock items and select zip codes only, subject to driver availability. Fees vary based on purchase. Exclusions and more terms apply. See Lowe's.com/same-day delivery for details.
Hi, guys. Jeffrey O'Brien here. Have you ever gone to HarmonSolar.com? Well, you really need to, because everything you ever wanted to know about how solar power can save you big on your monthly electric bill is right there. It's online. Through your phone or through your computer, you can learn about tax credits, the equipment they use, look at how they do things for businesses as well as homeowners, see testimonials from happy customers, and I hear they got a pretty good podcast too. Check it out. Go to HarmonSolar.com. That's HarmonSolar.com.
Don't miss a minute of the action when Sun Devil football returns to Mountain America Stadium Saturday, October 5th, when they take on Big 12 rival Kansas.
Svoboda throws, intercepted by Fiaseu. Cyrus Fiaseu is going to take it all the way in for an Arizona State touchdown. A pick 6 for San Diego State transfer Cyrus Fiaseu.
Get your tickets today by calling 480-727-0000 or go online to sundeviltickets.com.
Download our free sports app and stay up with all the latest sports news, scores, highlights, and more.
Or
stream us live anywhere
at 1580thefanatic.com.
1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic, Arizona's home for sports.
And we're back. And we're almost out of time. But before we do that, let's get to the picks today. Let's get to also a little bit of Falcons and Buccaneers. We'll roll that a little bit into one thing because that's a big thing going on tonight. NFC South matchup right here on 1580, The Fanatic, Thursday night football. And there's a lot going on in this game, Dylan, and not the least of which is that it's a divisional game, and those games have a little bit more weight because now you're beating somebody that it could be potentially holding your ticket to the postseason.
Yeah, and I mean, we just happened to see Atlanta, who's playing in this. They had a divisional game last week, and these divisional games end up being very close. In that particular instance, the Falcons ended up defeating the Saints by a field goal right at the end. And that's the exact kind of dynamic that I am expecting in this game. I do just want to go back and address a text from Jesse that we got earlier in the show. Appreciate you texting in, Jesse. I know you had a question about a parlay that you were potentially looking at, and I just plugged that into FanDuel. So Jesse is a big Raiders fan. He likes the Raiders priced on the money line as an underdog. I'm actually seeing it at plus 130 right now. And then he was looking at trying to add Bijan Robinson 100+ rushing and receiving yards tonight. And this is a little, it's a little tough for me to get excited about it. Part of that is because I was on Bijan Robinson to get, I think I needed him to get like 80 or 90 combined rushing and receiving yards last week. And I was watching that Saints and Falcons game because I had some other bets on Kirk Cousins. And none of them won. Bijan didn't come close to what I needed from him on the rushing and receiving. And what was a little bit more concerning as I was watching that game was that the Falcons really love Tyler Algier.
Yeah,
they are starting to give him a much larger proportion of the rushing attempts each game. That
I think Bijan's shown a level of explosiveness that they like, but when you ask Bijan to do it for the full game, for whatever reason, it doesn't pop. And so having a more balanced workload with him and Algier, gives Bijan those chances for home runs that he normally doesn't get. Obviously, the drawback being his workload's less. The chances that he's going to hit those numbers, those benchmarks, your receiving yards, your rushing yards, decreases a lot. So I agree with you on that. I think that starts to become a little bit more dangerous of a play.
Well, and especially last week, I mean, I'm watching this game. It's close game. It's coming down to the, final seconds where the Falcons ultimately went off a field goal. But as they're trying to get position to get there, they were not going to Bijan in the most crucial moments of the game. They were going to Algier,
because Algier's the guy you want to run in between the tackles and get hit. You get him moving in a place where he seems to be more comfortable than Bijan is. Bijan seems more comfortable in space where there's one guy to beat. If I make him miss, then that's a 10-yard gain, 15-yard gain. That's where Bijan seems to be doing his best work. They're trying to put him in positions to be successful. He's starting to turn into a little bit of a betting dud on that front, which is his workload is kind of just correlated to, can we get him in space? Because if we can't, we're not giving him the ball.
So, Bijan hasn't exceeded that 100+ mark for the last couple of weeks. And his line right now is sitting at like 91.5. So I would structure it a little bit more conservatively. I would be willing to take Bijan for 70+ rushing and receiving yards. If he ends up getting 100 and you do hit it, if that bet pays out like about 4-1. If you push it to 70 yards in a Raiders money line win, you're still getting a little bit over 2-1.
Yeah. So what's your pick on the game here? Because we got about 10 seconds before the music starts.
We're going to go with Buccaneers to cover. Keon and I talked about this one at length before the show. We believe the Buccaneers defense is a lot better than the way it's represented on paper. Much of that having to do with that Broncos game. And that was more of a scenario of Sean Payton really having the upper hand over Todd Bowles.
For whatever reason, Payton beats Bowles every time. Why? No idea.
But you pull that game out, and on paper, this is like one of the elite defenses, really, or at least in that conversation, in that upper third of the league.
Yeah, and they give up yards, but not really a ton of points. So I like the Buccaneers in this one, offensively and defensively.
Same. And then moving over to some college football, we have Sam Houston State, the Bearcats, taking on the UTEP Miners. UTEP has not won a game yet this year. And you can count on Sam Houston to cover the spread. So take them. It was at 10.5 last time I saw it. There's a number of other picks that are posted. Check out that Beat the Book website. Keon, take us home.
You've been listening to Beat the Book right here on 1580 The Fanatic.
I'm Bridget Condon with NFL Network Now on the Westwood One Radio Network. Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers popped up on the team's injury report Wednesday with a knee injury, but Robert Saleh calls him a full go, saying Rodgers is getting treatment, therefore he needs to be on the report. The Jets are set to arrive in London Friday ahead of their international matchup against the Vikings. Cowboys wide receiver Brandon Cooks has been ruled out of Sunday's Week 5 matchup against the Steelers due to a knee infection. Commanders head coach Dan Quinn says Austin Eckler has hit all the markers on the return to play protocol after suffering a concussion Week 3, and that, quote, arrows are pointing up. Patriots center David Andrews is expected to have surgery to repair a significant shoulder injury and will be placed on season-ending injured reserve, according to head coach Gerard Mayo. Andrews is in his 10th year with New England and has started 121 of 124 games played since he entered the league in 2015. This has been NFL Network Now on the Westwood One Radio Network.
All right, when it comes to getting life insurance for your family, a lot of excuses can get in the way. But ask yourself this: if something were to happen to me, who would pay the mortgage, the kids' education, and the other bills? Then forget the excuses and check out Ethos Life, the online, easy way to get life insurance in 10 minutes. Ethos has rates that you can afford, like a $500,000 policy for a 40-year-old male starting at $1 a day or $30 a month, with a few health questions and no medical exam. Get your free quote right now at checkethos.com. That's check